Chapter 34, What Mrs. Caporal Says. Mrs. Caporal and Uncle Weldon continue their conversation. I sit on the floor and I think about Rain and my father. I remember the night my father brought Rain home. I wonder if my father didn't know about microchips or if he just didn't want to look for Rain's owners. I think of my father letting Rain outside during a superstorm without her collar. I realize that my father hasn't helped me one bit in my search for Rain. I turn around and say to Mrs. Caporal, "My father found Rain in the rain. That's why I named her Rain. Also, it's a homonym." Mrs. Caporal looks puzzled. "Rain was all by herself with no collar," I continue. "Did you try to look for her owners?" Mrs. Caporal asks. I shake my head. "My father said we couldn't look for her because she didn't have any information or identification. Also, he said if she had owners, they must not have cared very much about her." I pause and then I say in a smaller voice that they cared enough to have her microchipped. Mrs. Caporal looks at me and says gently, "Pets can get separated from their owners for all kinds of reasons. Getting lost or separated doesn't mean the owners aren't irresponsible." I wonder if Mrs. Caporal is talking about the Hendersons or about my father and me. I nod. For some reason, I feel like crying again, so I say 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. But I say it in my head, so that I'm the only one who hears it. I see Uncle Weldon look from Rain and me to Mrs. Caporal. "What happens now?" he asks. "Do we leave Rain here?" "No!" I cry. "No, no, no, no!" I jump to my feet. Rain stands up too, looking nervous. She leans against my leg and nuzzles my hand with her nose. Mrs. Caporal lets out a breath of air that puffs her hair away from her forehead. "This is the first time I've run into this situation," she admits. "Let me talk to one of my coworkers." She leaves the waiting room. Uncle Weldon and I sit in the chairs. Rain jumps up and settles herself with her head in my lap and her rear in Uncle Weldon's lap. I say to my uncle, "I'd feel better if Olivia was a homonym name, but it isn't." Uncle Weldon gives me a sad smile. At last, Mrs. Caporal returns. She sits next to Uncle Weldon and says, "Let's see if you think this is fair. Considering that we've been trying to reach the Hendersons and haven't had any luck, and considering that Rain has been living with Rose for a year and clearly loves her." "And I love Rain," I say. "And you love Rain," Mrs. Caporal continues. "We've decided that she should go home with you, at least temporarily. It only seems fair, and she'll certainly be happier living with you than living here at the shelter." "Thank you!" I cry. "However," Mrs. Caporal goes on, "we will continue to search for the Hendersons. We're busier than usual just now because of the storm, but we will search. And if we reach them, or if they contact us and they want Rain back, well then," she spreads her hands again, "Rain is their dog after all. I mean, she was, originally. So please fill out this form with your information and we'll keep it on file." She starts to hand the form to me and then looks at Uncle Weldon. "I'll fill it out," he says. "I'll put down my information as well as Rose's and her father's." 5 minutes later, Uncle Weldon and I are walking out of Happy Tales with Rain between us. Yay. Maybe.